Well, good morning from Pittsburgh. At least I know it's morning for me. I've talked to a few of you already signing in from China, from Italy, from the very southern Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago. So welcome to everyone. My name is Mary Beth Morris. I'm the Assistant Director and Immigration Advisor here at Duquesne University. And we'll be going through some very important information today about applying for your visa and going through your visa interview. So I'm going to pull up some slides. We'll go through these. We'll probably use about the full hour. Again, we'll be recording, so if you can't join us for the whole thing, you'll have access to it later. And if you have any questions that come up, feel free to type them into the chat. Aaron Morelli's there on screen with me. He's one of our staff members and international recruiter, not traveling quite at all these days, but has traveled extensively. So Aaron, do you want to say anything as a quick welcome?
Yeah, welcome everybody. We know right now is probably a different time than usual for preparing for your visa interview, but like Mary Beth said, if you have any questions, put them into the chat box, or near the end of the presentation, you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. But we'll try to get to every question that we get in the chat box today. And again, this is being recorded. If you have any questions, you'll be able to watch them afterwards.
Great, thank you, Aaron. Okay, well, I'm going to go in and start sharing my screen. And we will get started. So while this does say F1 visa interview, we are going to talk about both Fs and Js. So I'll explain a little bit about what that is for those of you that might not understand it here in a moment. Whoops. Let's go back a page. Okay. So this is just a nice overview of what we'll be talking about and pretty much the process that all of you are probably somewhere in the middle of right now. And again, we'll talk about each of these details. So I'll just kind of go through them quickly right now. The first step in the process is, of course, receiving admission to Duquesne University. So congratulations. I think most of you are probably already accepted. That's quite an honor. We're thrilled to have you join our academic community. The twofold step is, of course, first getting accepted to the university. And then the rest of this process you'll see is just kind of the logistics, the paperwork, if you will. Some of it's virtual paperwork to actually get you here and to have you in a legal status as a student. Once you've been admitted to the university, and we'll talk about this, you'll either be granted documentation to apply for an F1 visa or for your J1 visa. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. I'll work with you on that. Our staff will. And once that document's issued, you'd move on to the next step of paying a SEVIS fee. Again, you'll have information, the link, where to do that, how to do that. All that information will also be sent to you in the email from me when I send you your documents. The next step would be completing the non-immigrant online visa application. So once you've been admitted to Duquesne and received your paperwork to apply for the visa, then you actually go online and make that visa application. You do need to have your immigration paperwork from me first, because they're going to ask you some information, specifically your SEVIS number. So we'll talk about what that all means. There's another fee. This is called the visa application processing fee. So you'll see the second little square here had the SEVIS fee that has to do with US Customs and Immigration. And this visa fee is actually just applying for the visa. And I must say that you apply and pay the fee, and even if your visa is denied, you don't get your money back. So at least be prepared for that. The next step would be scheduling an interview, and we'll talk about what that means, especially now these days with COVID, our hopefulness that the world's starting to get back into order, and hopefully that can all come together for you to get here. Gathering your documents, we'll talk about exactly what you need to apply for your visa interview. And lastly, we'll talk about what that means, what that interview process will be like, and what you can expect. So, receiving admission to Duquesne. We used to send these documents as originals in the mail, but during COVID, we're actually permitted to email these electronically to you, which really is a considerable time saver for everyone. We're delighted. So for now, we are emailing you documents. That could change. We will let you know if we need to send you originals. But for now, you can expect an email as your welcome packet. And included in this screenshot you'll see is of what an I-20 document would look like. This is what a student would use to apply for an F1 student visa. You can see a little bit in terms of what the, oops, let me go back, what the screen shows here with the circled number, your SEVIS ID. You'll see your program start dates, end dates. Obviously, one of the most important things is when you receive your documents, making sure everything is correct. We have a lot of data entry, and it's not a surprise if I make a mistake. So please let me know that right away. We can reissue your documents. So your SEVIS ID, the school code, and the program start and end dates. The school code is very unique to Duquesne, so every school will have its own code. The next step is paying the SEVIS fee. It's called the I-901 fee. There's a website directly where you can pay it with a credit card. Do pay attention. Some countries have limitations on how the payment can be made. So pay attention to how that might apply to you. Sometimes if it's an inability to pay through your own country, you might have someone in another country who could do it for you. So kind of read through those fine prints when you get there to see how you can pay it. But you will need to pay that fee before you can set up your interview. It's something you pay only once. The current price is $350 US. And what's interesting is once we've issued you your documents, we'll say the I-20, the picture we just saw, that document and number should stay with you throughout the course of your studies, not only here at Duquesne, but if you were going on for additional studies, usually students will have that SEVIS record transferred, which means as long as you continue to use that same SEVIS ID number, this SEVIS fee will still count. If something changes, or if maybe you left the States and decided to come back after a period of absence, you would have to apply for a new one and again, pay the new fee. But for the most part, this is a one-time fee. And once you've paid it, you should be good for many years. So the online visa application fee for non-immigrants, and we'll talk specifically why that word is important, non-immigrants. You're going to do the form DS-160. I list the website here, but you want to make sure that you enter that information for your visa application exactly as it appears on your I-20 or your DS-2019. The details become extremely important at the point when you're entering the US. You want absolutely everything to agree. So no mistakes, no errors. As I said, tell us, please let me know right away if something looks wrong so that we can get it corrected before you even get to the process of applying for the visa. So you want your information on your passport to be exactly what's on your I-20 or your DS-2019. And you also want that to be exactly what you use for your visa application online. The current cost for the visa application fee is $220. That fee is every time you apply for a visa. So this is not a one-time fee, whereas the SEVIS fee would be. Now, this fee does change a little and the instructions might change a little depending on country, but for the most part, it's always going to be the same price. We have the website listed there, www.usembassy.gov. If you need to check on more information about the specific embassy or consulate that you would be choosing to use. Again, remember that fee you're going to pay whether you get that visa or not. So if for some reason your visa was denied and you needed to apply again, you would have to pay that visa application fee again. Okay, so the next step, scheduling an interview. This is the tricky part right now, and I know you all know we've had just so many closures worldwide, not only of U.S. embassies, but most foreign embassies and consulates. Just when we start to see things opening back up again, another resurgence of COVID might happen, and things get shut back down again. We do stay on top of it. I know Erin especially really is aware of what's going on. We try to see daily, if not sometimes more than once a day, where things are, what appointments are becoming available. The most important thing, and this is quite obvious during COVID, but you really want to schedule this visa interview at the US Embassy or Consulate in your home country. We would say that even if it wasn't in the time of COVID, but because of COVID, they don't want you traveling either. But ideally, you're doing this appointment in your home country because that country, that embassy in that country for the US, is giving priority to the citizens of that country. And so that's one of the reasons it's always ideal to be doing it in your home country. Now, a perfectly reasonable exception to this would be if you're a permanent resident of another country, then certainly that country you're in would be the one you would use. But during COVID, travel is very risky and very difficult. And probably at the end here, I'll have Aaron chime in a little bit, just since he's probably a little bit more current on what he's been hearing. But we know the countries, especially India right now, has been really hard hit. We've seen things start to open and then they seem to close back up again. There's hope in the horizon that citizens for China will finally be able to get some priority for the visa appointments. So do hang in there and do be patient. We want to do everything we can to get you ready, which is why we're doing these webinars, so that you go and have a successful appointment. So wait times, there's a website that we can provide to you that actually can tell you what the typical wait time might be for a specific city or country. If you pull it up and it says 999 days, that means they just don't know right now. It's not really 999 days. But it's something you can check daily and it is updated all the time. So the documents that you would need to gather. We talked about the Form I-20 for the students applying for the F visa. For those of you who are applying for the J visa, the form's just a little different, a little shorter, the DS-2019. Basically, J students are considered short-term exchange visitors. And that would be the difference between maybe an F student who's coming for a degree to earn the degree at Duquesne. Sometimes the Js are here for a shorter period of time and maybe not to earn the degree as much as to take the credits, the experience back to their home institution. So that's really the difference between the Fs and the Js. And therefore the documentation is just two different forms. So whether it's a DS-2019 or the I-20, they're pretty much interchangeable. So if you're not sure, certainly reach out to us. But we usually know from you at the beginning when you're applying which of those categories you would fall into. So you've got your I-20 or your DS-2019. Once you've gone online and done your DS-160, which we spoke about, you'll be able to print out the confirmation page that you've paid that SEVIS fee. Even if you lose that, just so you know, you can always go back in and reprint that. The third one, the passport. Obviously, if you haven't already, check the expiration date on your passport. Most countries will do 5 to 10 years. You want to make sure you have at least 1 year, I would say even more than 1 year left remaining when you apply for your visa. You can always renew your visa. You can always renew your passport while you're in the US, but you would want to make sure you have plenty of time to do that. The most important time your passport is going to be useful and needed is when you travel. So you would never really want to be caught in the US without a valid passport, because then you would not be able to travel back home. You're also going to need some passport style photos. Those are pretty obvious, little headshots. Your SEVIS I-901 fee receipt, which is proof of your visa payment as well. So remember, as you go through and make these fees, print out the confirmations, keep track so you know where to go in and do that again if you need to. Now, the financial documents you'll want for your visa application are the same things that we've used to issue your I-20 or your DS-2019. So it's very important that that information is the same, because it's going to be what we use to issue your documents. The consular officers will have your documents in front of you, and they'll have the I-20, and they want everything to agree. So it's very important that you keep these things together. Okay. Aaron, I'm going to have to ask you to help out here. I think my arrows are going crazy. I am not doing that.
Oh, that's not me actually. I'll try to disable some of the participation then.
Thank you. These are the important points. Somebody's pointing them out for us. So the financial documents, same as we've requested for you to support the issuing of your immigration paperwork. Things like your bank statements. Typically, they want 3 to 6 months worth, recent months worth. Some of you also are able to get letters from your bank or certifications from your sponsors indicating they're fully prepared to financially sponsor you for your time here in the US. All of those things are going to be critically important, and some of them a little unique to the country you're from. So I notice I see certain things maybe from India that I don't see from other countries. Do what your country is used to. That's what the visa and consular offices are going to be looking for. And if you're not sure, reach out and ask us as well. You'll obviously need your acceptance letter to Duquesne. That's going to have very specific information as to the major you were accepted into, the semester that you're scheduled to begin, all those sorts of things, which we'll talk about a little bit later, are going to be part of the questions they may ask you during the visa interview. Thank you. Other things that you'll want to have ready for you are academic documents, the same sort of things that you submitted to us to get your acceptance, whether they be test scores, they could be English testing scores, they could be your transcripts.
Hi, Mary Beth. Sorry, could you, on the More option on your screen, click Disable Attendee Annotation?
I will.
It should just be the ... next to Share Screen or in the bottom right of your window.
There, I think that might have done it.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see if that helps. So the next step, actually, let me make sure I didn't skip a slide. Okay, the last one here, because we did have a question about this. Documents showing ties to your home country. Essentially, one of the most important things to keep in mind is that this coming to be a student in the US, you're coming in as a non-immigrant, which means you're not intending to come in to become a US citizen or to become a permanent resident. That's a completely different process and a completely different visa. So one of the things they want to make clear is that you are indeed coming for a temporary stay to be a student, and you have full intentions to return back home to your home country. So something that might be documents showing ties to your home country. Whoops, just having trouble with this today, aren't we? One thing I often say is if you have a job offer, if you know that after you complete your degree, somebody's already offering you a job, that is the perfect sort of documentation to have. Somebody saying, you know, we're excited for you, you're going to finish your degree in 2 years, we're offering you this job, please come work for us. That's something that shows a nice tie to your home country, that you plan to finish your education and go back home. Another thing could be just family ties. Maybe you have property in your name, or maybe it's a family company that you're expected to join and work for when you come back. Anything that shows your connectivity to your home country will really be vitally important, because they want to see that you are not trying to immigrate. So that's the key word in this. This is a non-immigrant visa when you're coming as a student. So coming for your interview, these are some funny screenshots here, but very typical. Your interview will be similar to that picture at the bottom of the screen. It will not be a sit-down face-to-face interview, which is what I would have always assumed an interview sounds like. It will be much shorter, typically 2 to 5 minutes. You'll be standing, and you'll be between bulletproof glass and the consular official who's working with you. Very likely, this interview will be conducted in English, because one of the contingencies of you coming to study in the US, you'll be studying in English. So sometimes they just want to verify that you have an understanding, a good understanding of English. Of course, an exception to this would be if you're coming to study English, but that'll be clearly documented on your I-20 form. The office will ask you questions similar to all the documentation that we just went through. What's your major? Where is the school? I think I have a list of some of those questions here. What are your study plans? So if you're coming for a 4-year degree, you should know it's 4 years. What made you choose Duquesne University? Where are we? What state are we in? We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They want to find out a little bit more about your academic capability. So maybe if this is a graduate school, they might look at your undergrad transcripts. They're going to look into your financial status. It is vitally important that you can show proof of funding to cover your time while you're here. When the consular official issues the visas, they want to know that you're coming, you're able to pay, because there is no support from our government for international students. Therefore, it is vitally important that you show up front that you have the full funding to be able to pay for your experience, your time here at Duquesne. They might also ask about post-graduation plans. As I said, if you have a job offer or more than one offer, if you have plans to return to your home country for maybe an additional degree, a graduate study, having information about that program could be useful. They may also ask about your family, your background, general questions. So as we said, what's your major? How long is your degree program? They may ask you questions of what you already know about your field of study. And why are you coming to the US? Why are you planning to continue your education here in the US? That's a very big question. And how will the study program relate to maybe your past work or your past studies? Why did you choose Duquesne? There's a lovely picture of our campus. We're really located in the heart of the city, but we're up on a nice little hilltop where it's a private campus, lots of green space. And we find that a lot of students really choose it because it's such a wonderful city. It's a very livable city. It's actually been ranked as one of the most livable cities in the whole US. It's a nice size. It's not a huge city. It's not like New York City, but it has a lot to offer. So, looking at things like that, is that what was involved with you choosing Duquesne University? Perhaps it was, you met Aaron or you met Megan out on your travels. Maybe it's the programs we offer. So really, have those questions kind of rehearsed in advance and feel very comfortable with being able to go into the interview, being able to be at ease and easily talk about Duquesne. They may ask how many universities you were admitted to, how many rejected you. They may want to see, how did we narrow down, or did you just apply to one place? So, be honest. They may ask if you know any of your professors' names. And again, I said, what city? We're here in Pittsburgh. The one thing I'll say about the professors' names that's very unique to the group of you, and I recognize a lot of your names, is some of you have started online. And so you actually are in a very unique spot that you're taking classes before you've even arrived. That's something that we're happy to help assist you with. If you've started online and would like an additional letter from me, please let me know. I'll be happy to put that in writing. I think it's just one more support to say you're already one of our students, you're an online student, and we can't wait to have you join us for in-person classes. So just let us know if there's something like that could assist you as well. We talked about the academic capability. What are your test scores? If you took the GRE or the GMAT or TOEFL or the IELTS, those are for all different levels, graduate study, English language study. So they may ask for those, have them with you and be able to talk about them. They may ask about your previous grade, your GPA, your grade point average. They may ask what you know about US schools. Obviously, our educational system will be very different than most of your home countries and unique. We're different, between countries and among countries. So maybe you wanted to come to the US for a unique experience. They may ask about managing. How will you manage the cultural and the educational differences? They may want to see a high school or previous college diploma, and they're going to want to know how good your English is. So again, just kind of rehearse these things, be prepared and know what to expect. I think that's the biggest part of it all, which is why we're so eager to help you by doing this session. So I pulled the I-20 back up again. When they ask about the financial questions, you'll see it listed there in the red circle under financials. The estimated average cost for usually it's 9 months, 8 to 9 months, depending on the length of the school year. Some programs run through the summer, so we might be 12 months. But they're going to ask about who's going to sponsor your education. And that's exactly what we list on the I-20. You know, who is your sponsor? What is their relationship to you? What's their occupation? Maybe what their monthly or annual income is. Having documents to those effect, that supporting documentation will be very useful to you. Now, this I-20 is only requiring for you to show proof of your first year of funding. So they may ask, how do you plan to fund the entire cost if it's a 4-year program or a 6-year program? So just kind of being ready for that as well. They may ask you how much we cost. Well, I can tell you it'll be written right there on the I-20. That's the cost going into this school year. Cost does usually increase a little bit each year. So you'll see that listed. If you've been offered a scholarship, you'll see that listed as well. So they may ask to see your bank statements. They may ask to see tax returns. So be prepared, have those things ready and with you to be able to pull out if they should ask. The post-graduation plans. Again, have you thought about this? If you haven't, give it some thought so that you have some answers ready when you go into the interview. What are your plans? Do you have that job offer or career in mind? Do you plan on returning back to your home country? The answer is yes. They want you to say yes. And that's part of the non-immigrant visa. If you do not have plans, maybe it's because you plan on going to a third country for more studies. That's a fine answer too. But just knowing what your intentions are. And then how will you use these skills and the knowledge that you earned from your degree program? Like I said, is it for further graduate studies? Is it to go straight into a career and that sort of thing? More information about your family. So maybe what do your parents do? Where do your parents live? Maybe how many siblings do you have? The most important question is, do you have any relatives in the US? Be honest. They may say, you know, oh, you have a sister or brother already studying in the US, in which case then they understand that your family understands the commitment it takes. So that's actually in your favor. You could have other relatives that have immigrated here, and that's fine too, but you'll want to make sure that you're always showing the ties to go back to your home country. So the general questions, for instance, why picking the US over the UK or Australia? You know, why did you pick it? Is it for the English studies? Is it maybe in part for the cultural aspect? You know, something that you would like to have on your resume to say, studied in America. You know, having those answers, think through those things. If you are currently working in your home country, they may ask why you're leaving that job. Is this, maybe this additional degree is to help you advance your career, or maybe you're changing careers. So, you know, think about those things. This next question is bolded on purpose. Do you plan to work in the US? That is a tricky question, and I'll explain what that means. As a non-immigrant student visa, your plan should be to study. So when they ask if you plan to work, the only way you could work is incidentally. So you could work on campus. Many students do that. You might be working as a graduate assistantship, or in a research position. Those are very valid reasons, and those are reflected on your immigration paperwork. What they do not want to hear you say is that you plan to work off campus, because that is not permitted with your visa. So we want to make sure that you understand the difference. You can work on campus during school. You could have some off-campus work approved, always through me, through your immigration status, if it's tied directly to your curriculum. And there are some opportunities for that while you're a student. And then there's one at the end where they can give you up to a year to stay in the US and work in your field. But your main goal for this visa appointment is to get a student visa. So your work in the US is not why you would be coming here. And that's really what we want to make sure you know. So what do you do if your visa is denied? We do see this often. I'd say more often we see people get their visas, but it is unfortunate the case that sometimes visas are denied. And we typically find that maybe something was missing in the paperwork. Maybe a student forgot to bring the bank statements. It's an obvious reason. You can reapply, usually have a certain amount of time you have to wait before you reapply. But don't be discouraged if you do get denied. They may definitely ask if you've been to the US before. Again, be honest, it's in your passport, so don't lie. But they may say, oh, so he's seen the US and realized that was a place they wanted to be. So again, sometimes it's just to find out a little bit more about your thought process in choosing to study in the US and to study at Duquesne. And then the question, will you return to your home country during the vacation periods? We find that students might go home once a year in the summer when we have the longest breaks. We have a break usually for about 4 to 5 weeks during the Christmas holiday, a spring break usually for 1 week in March, and then a shorter spring break, fall break that might be like a long weekend. But those kinds of breaks are what they're wondering about. What are your plans? And you may say, oh, I'm going to see more of the US. I'm going to travel with friends, or I'm going to stay at Duquesne and catch up on schoolwork. I just want to know if you've thought about it, because it is a big experience to leave your home country, to study abroad here in the US, and to do so for a long period of time. So they just want to make sure you've thought through all that. So visa approval, this is our goal. This is a picture of what a visa would look like. It's a sticker that's put onto one full-size page of your passport. And the things that you're circled will show what the visa type is. This example has the F1 under the word type, and that is the F1 student visa, where it's circled and it says entries next to the photo of the student. You'll see an M. The M stands for multiple entries. That is ideally what you want, to be able to use that visa to come and go over the US border as often as you need to. The other option for the entry could be a single entry, which is less common and would allow you to use that visa only one time when you crossed in the first time. And then you'll see the expiration date. And the lengths vary. Sometimes they'll give you 3 to 5 years, depending on the length of your program. But 5 years is about typical for the most that we'll see. So you've got your visa. Continue your pre-departure planning. Be in touch with us. Tell us you've gotten your visa. If you plan to arrive, you can come up to, but no more than 30 days before your program starts. So if your I-20 or DS-219 is for fall 2021, you can arrive as early as July 24th this summer. If you're looking ahead to January and part of the spring 2022 class, then you can arrive as early as the 13th of December of this year. So up to, but no more than 30 days before. For some people, they want that extra time to get over jet lag, to find an apartment if they're living off campus, to try and get settled. So that's a nice, reasonable amount of time. And we're happy to assist you. Keep in touch so that we know when you're planning to arrive, what those ways are that we can assist you. Okay, if your visa is denied, what should you do? Do not panic. Try to get them to put it in writing why you were denied. Review your options. You've got a website listed here. And again, you can apply again, but if you know exactly why you were denied, again, was documentation missing? Maybe you didn't show those ties to your home country. What is it? Just try to get that in writing so that you can follow up and do a different, apply better and do it differently the next time. So the next time, again, bring anything additional that you forgot or need, and obviously emphasize those ties to your home country. That is one of the most important things that they're looking for. So in terms of the general tips, do all these steps as soon as you can. Practice this interview in English. Interact with a family, friend, parent, teacher, somebody who can assist you in English if needed, because I think that's really going to help you get comfortable with the questions and the answers. Be able to explain the purpose of your visa and how your plans fit to that visa type. You're coming as a student, you know, what your short-term and long-term goals are and that sort of thing. This next one might seem a little funny, wear proper clothing, but think of this as a business appointment. You know, you want to appear properly dressed, respectful. I think that's an important word to use. If you remember the picture, the consular officer had a tie on. So, you know, look presentable and respectful. In your answers, be honest, be confident, be polite, but also be brief. So I think the rehearsing really comes in handy here so that you know what you want to say and how to say it with fewer words, perhaps. Be familiar with your documents, what they look like, how you're carrying them, how they're stored in your bag or in a file. Be able to put your hands on something really quickly if they should ask for it. And remember what the consular official is looking for. Emphasize that you have no plans to immigrate to the US, that you do have strong ties to your home country, family, property, investments, career prospects. Emphasize that you're coming for a short period of time to be a student, to enhance your education and your career opportunities. And those are the things that they're really looking for. So some questions we definitely want to put up here just because of COVID and the crazy world we're all a part of right now. Your country, let's say, is on lockdown, including banks. How can I produce my financial documents? Very often we find that students can get these things electronically. They might have access to print something of their own from a bank statement. Ideally, you can get something on the letterhead of the bank or on official bank paperwork. But reach out. You know, most students are able to get their hands on what they need. What if there are no visa appointments in your country? What can I do? I would say be patient. Again, remember, the most important thing is that you do apply in your home country. With some exceptions, if you have maybe other bordering countries and you're able to travel. But remember that the embassies are going to give priority to citizens or residents of the country they're in. So be patient, be persistent, check daily to see about making appointments. What if your deposit deadline for Duquesne is approaching, but you don't yet have your visa? Can you pay the deposit later? You could, but we're also telling students if you pay your deposit and do not get a visa, we will refund that. And we've done that. So, so don't let that interfere so much. In fact, paying that deposit could also be another nice sign to the consular official of your commitment and your interest in intending to come to Duquesne. What if I can't arrive on time for the fall classes or next spring because of visa issues? Well, we're determining that kind of on a case-by-case basis. It's realistic that coming more than 1 week late is much too challenging. The amount of work that you would have missed is great. Catching up is very challenging and very difficult. So at some point, we will recommend that you defer to the next semester. We've seen students doing that already this past year. Some of you students have been trying to come since last August. So do be patient. We can certainly defer you and move you to a future term. But don't worry so much about it. We're not going to take away your acceptance.
Hi, Mary Beth. Can I
So,
jump in here real quick?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to send a link really quick to everyone in the chat room. We have an international student survey that we're asking students to fill out. That'll give us an understanding of what your plans are to study this fall, either in person, online, or if you expect to arrive late. But there are also other options for students who are in programs with online options. And I know we have a lot of students on today that are in our graduate computer science program. Those ones also are fully available online. So if you are unable to secure your visa in time to arrive in August, you will be able to start your courses online first and then arrive late in the semester. And then also for some of our graduate business programs, But some of these questions are in the survey as well, but we really recommend that you reach out to your academic advisor to understand if you have online options this fall, because we will be able to work with you to update travel documents or give you an additional letter, say if you aren't able to get your visa in time for fall. As long as you have those online options from your advisor and you know you're able to start online and arrive late. But if not, like Mary Beth said, arriving 1 week is usually the latest that is okay for your academic program if they are in person. But I'm going to send everyone the link now, and if you wouldn't mind filling this out by May 10th, this would really help us get an idea of who's arriving on campus, who plans to go online, and help us prepare for your arrival this fall.
Karen. That's perfectly timed into basically my next slide as well. For the most part, we tend to have in-person courses this fall. Duquesne plans to return to full in-person classes beginning this fall and continuing the spring semester. However, there are some exceptions. So if you are not sure if your program falls into it, reach out to your program director or advisor, especially on the graduate level, as they are making some exceptions for those of you who are unable to come to begin online. But for the most part, it will be in person. And because they're in person, that's why it's critical that arriving within the first week of classes is pretty much the latest that you could come. But again, keep in touch with us, keep us posted throughout the summer of your ability to get a visa appointment, if you do get a visa or if your visa was rejected, and those sorts of things. The likelihood of us having online courses at all, with the exception of a few programs, really is low. I think only if there's another major lockdown would we go this route again. We did have some availability for online or hybrid, part online, part in classroom this past year. But after 1 year of it, the university has decided, things are looking up in the US, here in Pittsburgh and in Pennsylvania. Many people are being vaccinated. We actually are doing vaccinations on campus for students and faculty and staff. So with that in mind, we're at the point where we really feel like we can return to full in-person, and that is our goal for the next school year. But as always, we will continue to monitor what our local and US authorities require. Continue to check emails from us for any updates that we might have. But for the most part, if you're not sure how it applies to you, reach out, find out from your program director or program advisor, and maybe you'll be able to have that opportunity to begin online if you cannot get here. Okay. So what you can do as needed, submit your documents for us. If you're getting the I-20 or the DS-2019, we are already, of course, processing for this fall and looking ahead for next spring. Be patient. If we need to defer you, we can do that. If we need to reissue documents with new dates, we can do that. Because we're issuing these electronically, it makes it instantaneous. Once they're issued, they're in your hands in an email. Apply for your visa appointment as soon as you can. Keep up to date on the embassy or consulate that you'll be using. Check your emails for updates from us. When we know more about what's happening in certain parts of the world, we can reach out to you and also let you know. And always keep us updated at the following key times. If you scheduled your visa interview, we'd love to know what that date is. When you're approved for your visa, that now really confirms to us of your ability to get here. And then letting us know when you do plan to arrive on campus. And if, unfortunately, you need to, deferring your admission, we're happy to do that. Luckily for us, flights are now so readily available with change options that it almost doesn't even need to be said to purchase flights that allow you to make changes. But make sure you do check when you buy them. And always continue to safeguard your own health. We want you to be healthy. We want you to be able to travel. And we want you to arrive healthy. So do what you can on your end. If you can get vaccinated before you come, wonderful. If not, you can probably get vaccinated here. So reach out to us with your questions about those sorts of things as well, especially as related to COVID. We'll have some videos here that should be links that you could check into. Afterward, when we send this off to you, just some general visa tips for some of the more popular places throughout the world. These were done before COVID, so this is what would be typical of those areas, but not relative to how COVID might be impacting them right now. And any questions? We'll move over to questions now in case Erin has some. My contact information is there. I think you know this. You've been reaching out to me. But do we have any questions, Erin?
Yeah, we definitely received a few in the chat box. So our first question is, hello, I'd like to know what is considered as a tie to my country, which makes sure I go back after my studies. So could you expand on some examples that show that tie to their home country?
Yeah, this is really a key, important one. So we really can't emphasize it enough. Things that would tie you to your home country, again, could be connections to investments in your country. So, you know, if you've got money in the bank, if you've got savings accounts, if you have stocks, if you own property, connections to your family as well. You know, if you're one of many children or part of a big extended family, if maybe that family owns a business that you're expected to become a part of, or if you have other job offers in the country. Maybe you have a fiance and you'll be returning to get married, but you'll be coming to study alone. All of those things are really key. So I'd say those are the things to look at. If you have other questions you're wondering about, would this count? Shoot me an email and we can let you know.
Hey, thanks, Mary Beth. And then these next two questions are about the transmission of the I-20 form. So first, are printed I-20 forms considered an official copy, like a printed digital I-20, or should I obtain a hard copy from you? And are these sent electronically?
Yes, these answers are very unique than they ever would have been before COVID. So they're great questions. We are able to issue electronic documents and they are considered acceptable. However, we do recommend that you check with the consulate or the embassy that you'll be using, just in case they recommend that you have an original hard copy. If you would feel better just having an original hard copy, we are happy to do that for you. When I send the I-20 with my signature, I've actually, if you print it in color, you'll see that it's signed in blue ink. And we do that on purpose, even on the originals. So if you print it and you can print it in color, that's a good idea. But right now, as far as we can see, this won't be changing anytime soon. The electronic copies are permitted. When we send you the electronic document, we include information, or if you can't find it, just let us know on how to request shipping of an original document. We use something called eShip Global. It's easy for you to go in, set up an account, put in your address, pay for it, and it comes to me. I print it out, sign an original, and I put it off in the mail to you. It's not a bad idea to have that original. We know that if anything changed and we had to get originals out to all of you, that will be a big undertaking, not just for Duquesne, but for all US universities. But at this point, we don't expect that to change. Digital should be perfectly accepted into the future as we see it.
All right. Our next question is, we don't have a U.S. embassy in my home country. Could you please clarify what to do extra?
Yes, there are some locations that do not have a U.S. embassy. And they will be assigned probably one of the nearby neighboring countries as an alternative. I know, for example, we had some applicants from Iran. There's no U.S. embassy there. And I looked it up, and the neighboring countries or there are other options. I think Turkey was one of the options. So they will have specific information out there as to where they recommend you apply instead.
All right. And we had another question just about interview questions. Are these going to be asked by the embassy, or do any of the university professors ask these after their arrival to campus?
That's a good question. Only at the embassy or consulate. Once you are here, once you cross the border, you're here. Nobody at Duquesne will be asking you any of those questions. You might get questioned when you're crossing the border at the airport. But as you probably know, those lines are very, very long and they don't have a whole lot of time to talk to everybody. And so they try to keep the lines moving, in which case they might just ask 1 or 2 questions. But for the most part, the questions we talked about are at that visa interview at the consulate or embassy only.
All right, next question. So we don't have much time. There's still a bunch of questions. So we have another question. I work through YouTube and Instagram and I receive in dollar currency, so additional income. Will I need to talk about that during my interview?
Assuming that was done from their home country, no, not really. You could be paid in US dollars from your home country that would have nothing to interfere with a visa application process. It might come up later as a tax question, but most of the time it only would refer to money earned while you're in the US on US soil.
All right, next question. It's like, hi, Mary Beth, great presentation, very helpful. Please, what happens to some students that are coming with a dependent? What are the possible challenges and what could help during the interview?
That's a great question. We do see families coming, spouses, maybe children. Typically, the interview will always be with the main applicant, the student. I think taking a family along actually is a great support to your idea of keeping your family unit together. And then also enriching the lives of those dependents by giving them the experience to be in the US as well. I mean, for the most part, it's the financial funding that's important. We ask that a student shows at least $4,000 per year for a spouse and an additional $2,000 for each child dependent. Those are pretty much the biggest requirements for dependents, is the financial side.
All right. Our next question is, the country is in lockdown and the embassy is closed. How should I proceed?
Yes, that's a great question. I would say to continue to monitor what's going on in your country, to stay apprised of updates, reaching out to us if we have updates. We'll certainly let you know, but I'd say on a daily basis to kind of keep track of when those visa appointments are opening up, going in and grabbing one as soon as you can, but also being patient, because we do find that students get appointments and then have them canceled sometimes 48 hours beforehand, and it's usually COVID related to closing. So I would say hang in there.
Just to add on to any of our students here from India, we're very aware of the lockdowns that are throughout the country and the embassy and consulate closures. A lot of operations are going to start resuming around May 9th, but we should start seeing new appointment availabilities at the end of May, and we're hopeful, but again, this is very dependent on how COVID-19 progresses over the next few weeks. But like Mary Beth said, keep checking the website, looking for visa appointment availabilities, because these will become available. We've seen webinars where students that are applying for F1 visas will be given priority, or really all academic visa categories, but they will be given priority, especially as we approach August, and we're closer and closer to the start of classes. So if you're not able to schedule your appointment now, keep checking, go back to the website. That's really our best advice at this point. But we are hopeful that more appointments will become available in the next coming weeks, in the next few months. So keep looking on your website for appointments. And our next question is, you mentioned about contacting you regarding a letter as proof of, do we know any professors from the university? What exactly does that mean?
I think those are two separate things that got mixed together a little bit. If you know any of your professors, like I said, probably only because you're taking online classes, that might be a question that a consular officer would ask you. Do you know any of your professors' names? It's not an important question. It's not relevant for the most part. None of you would know your professors' names before you get here. The other part of that, the second part, is if you were doing online classes and wanting now to try and come in person, I could do a letter for you indicating that. List your name, your date of birth, indicate you began your program of whatever for this semester, you spent 2 semesters studying online, you're eager to join our classes in person, and that sort of thing. And that sometimes is just another boost of support to say, this is very legit. You're trying to get here. We're asking for the assistance of the embassy or the consulate to grant you that visa.
Okay, next question is, I have a scholarship from the university. Should I present any other form of funding?
Good question. If that scholarship covers everything, you will not need to show other funding. But it's not a bad idea to have some sort of bank statement or account information, because you will have the cost of travel and other maybe incidentals. But for the most part, if a scholarship covers the cost of being at the university, then you wouldn't really be required to show anything else. Just having that scholarship letter would do it.
And then next one, for the ties to your home, should the home ties connection be presented in paper, or is word of mouth good enough?
I guess it might depend on what they are. If you had a deed to property with your name on it, certainly bring it. Things like that. Others, it might not really exist in paper format, in which case it might just be a verbal answer to a question.
Okay, and we have just another minute. So we have another one. Do we have to present any documents on health verification?
For the visa appointments, as far as we are aware, no. Now, for the flight, yes. So check with your airline with what would be required, usually recent COVID testing with a negative result within 72 hours or something before flying. But no, there's nothing that's required health-wise, immigration, connected to immigration.
Okay. And then our last 2 questions. For this student's program, the exams such as the GRE and the TOEFL were waived. Is there any document that I can use during the visa interview to reflect the same, or is this necessary?
No, I'd say if they're waived, not really. If there were test scores and they were part of the process, then they would be an additional support to just show these are my qualifications. But if they were waived, I don't think it's anything you have to worry about.
All right. And then last question is, what are some of the challenges to face on campus for someone planning to come with dependent children? This is a bit more general.
What was that?
I was saying this is a bit more general, just about life on campus.
Yeah.
Or this might be specific about traveling to the United States with dependents.
I would say a lot of it depends on the age of the dependents. We find many young families come and enroll their children in schools locally here in Pittsburgh. They love for their children to have the exposure to English in the classroom, to be able to learn English as a second language, and also to kind of be immersed in the cultural experience. Pittsburgh itself is a very international city. We have many other world-renowned international universities here. And because of that, we see a big international population in the city. So it's very easy to kind of reach out and find others of your own nationality as a network here in town, whether it be for groceries, for markets, for your church, and for other opportunities. But I'd say pretty much that the biggest challenge really would probably be connected to school-age children and their need to know English or their ability to basically learn it. But I see so many families do it that I know it's something families kind of welcome the opportunity to do.
All right, and Mary Beth, if you have another minute, we have about 2 more questions, if that's all right.
Yeah.
These were questions about the J1 visa and differences between. So 1, are you able to travel on a J1 visa? How many entries do you typically get on a J1 visa? And will you be able to use your B2 visa to travel home on school breaks? And I can repeat any of those if that helps.
I think I've got it, but if I miss something, let me know. You can travel on a J visa because Js are issued for usually a shorter period of time than an F visa, because the student or scholar is an exchange visitor. There's a shorter time period in general on the document, on the DS-2019, and therefore when the visa is issued, it might be issued for a shorter period of time. It's usually issued as a multiple entry, just as an F visa would be. And for whether it be the I-20 for Fs or the DS-2019s for Js, before you travel, myself or another staff member would sign the document endorsing it for travel, saying, yes, you've been here, maintaining your status, please let them back in. So yes, you can travel on the Js. And I should mention, anywhere traveling within the US is easy once you're here. I mean, our country is very large, but there's a lot of things to see. And so we often find that students want to travel in the US, and it's very easy to do because you're not even crossing the border. What was the last part of that question then?
Will they be able to use their B2 visa to travel home on school breaks?
Not really. The most important thing with your visa is that when you enter the US, you're entering using the proper visa. So if you had an F1 visa and a B1, B2, make sure when you come in, you're showing your I-20, because if they flip open your passport and see the B1, B2, they might stamp you and enter you as a tourist. That's not going to help you at all. So you really would never use that B1, B2, because on your departure out of the US, you're not really showing your visa. They're not really doing any visa processing. It's always upon your re-entry. And when you re-enter, you need to be in the student visa type. So having a B1, B2 is nice, but it almost won't be relevant or useful during the time when you might have the J visa.
Okay, so we have one more question. This is more about deposits and visa refusals. So I paid my deposit but was refused the visa in 2019. I was asked to reapply. Would the deposit fee be refunded? So the answer, I can answer this one. As long as you're still applying, because your next question, I have a new admission now, would the previous deposit fee for 2019 be applied to this new admission? So if you are reapplying or you have deferred, your deposits do carry over if it's within the same program and if you're reapplying. So if you're still reapplying for your new program this fall 21, that deposit will be applied to this offer. But at the end of this cycle, if you're still unable to get a visa, please email us directly and we can work with you for your deposit. But still keep trying, and especially if you're still applying for a new program this fall 21, just keep trying for it. But if not, let us know and we can sort it out there. And then Mary Beth, we had other questions about on-campus accommodations or living. Could you expand about some of the options our international students have for living on or off campus?
We find that most undergraduate students, especially the first beginning of a college career, will want to live on campus. And so we actually have a requirement for on-campus housing, but that's at the beginning of undergrad, maybe the first 2 years or so. We do offer what we would consider typical dormitory style living. You might have one roommate, you might be in a suite with 4 students total in a shared bath. It might be a bath down the hall that you would share, but there are also apartments on campus as well as adjacent and near campus that would be independent living on your own. On campus, you would be a part of the meal plan if you resided in dormitory. But if you were in an apartment or off campus, there are options for smaller meal plans that would allow you to eat some of your meals on campus if you wanted to.
Okay, and I think this will be our last question, then we'll wrap up for today. And we did have questions about if the meeting is being recorded. So yes, we will be sending this out to everyone who's registered for the event today, along with the presentation. But our last questions are, my program is 5 years and I was awarded a scholarship. Will I be, oh, sorry, it moved. My program is 5 years and I will have to apply for a J1 because I was awarded a scholarship. Will I be on a J1 visa for 5 years?
It could be a J1 visa, but I'd probably have to look into that situation a little more specifically to know that it is the right visa type. But typically a student knows when they're applying to Duquesne which of the visa types it is. If you're working with your home institution, another university that already has an exchange agreement, then that's very clearly an exchange. If you're coming to earn a degree here at Duquesne, it's very often an F visa. But we would certainly look into that specifically for anybody with those kinds of questions.
All right, and I think that wraps up our time available today. I just wanted to give one last note about the recent proclamation from President Biden for traveling to and from India. So for any students who are reading the news, this is a very recent proclamation to limit the majority of travelers to and from India in the United States. But shortly after President Biden made his proclamation, the US state, the Secretary of State announced that F1 and M1 and J1, really all academic visa types, are excluded from this and will still be able to travel with any kind of travel ban that is going on. And there's no additional step needed for the student to do. So if you are from India and you are planning to arrive in the United States or return back to India and travel this fall, you will be exempt. You are able to continue to travel, but please just stay up to date. We will be sending information if we hear any new updates, but as this changes, as the next couple of weeks progress, please just pay attention to the news and see if there are any changes in this. But it is our understanding at this point that all Indian students will be able to arrive on campus this fall, even if the travel proclamation is still in effect. All right, but thank you everybody. We had a lot of great questions today. Thank you, Mary Beth, for a lot of this information. Again, we'll be sending this presentation and the recording out to everybody. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.